This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by a hero of the Horn, Lady Juliana.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today we are covering the Eye of the World chapters 10 through 17.
Yeah, our journey continues. Welcome. I think we've had. I was actually very pleasantly surprised to see just the reaction to our first episode. I think we have a lot more people are joining us than I thought initially would be there kind of for that first episode. So that was kind of a little overwhelming. Actually, I was like, wow. So
I know it's crazy, man. People are answering the call. Okay.
Yes.
Gosh dang it. We sounded the horn and the heroes are coming. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta say, man. As my first read of this huge book series, man, I'm locked in. Really, yeah. I mean, man, everyone has told me for years, "Oh, Wheel of Time is so good. It's so good. It's so good." And I'm right there with you. I'm just like, boom, I'm ready to go. So
yeah. Let me. I want to put a little carrot out there because, like, obviously, yeah, we're doing this in segments, and we're still in, the Eye of the World. I told folks I'm kind of reading ahead, but dude, at one point I was reading the other day, just in the next book, and it is, I literally, the reason we're doing this is because I cannot wait for you to get to some of these parts so we can, like, experience it and talk about it together. Mm-hmm. Like, even this segment right here today, the chapters that we're covering, like, discovering, like, channeling and how it all works and who the villains and are and what they're up against. It's just, like, epic. It's so nice to have somebody just to talk to about and just to go crazy about this series, because it's fantastic. And actually, everyone who has been new to this and they've maybe jumped in for their first read, they will tell you once you get through this first part of Eye of the World, it flies. The series just flies. You just take off, and you're as you say, locked in and like ready to go. So it's exciting, and I'm so happy we're doing it. It's literally my favorite thing right now because it just I love the series that much, and it's like when we started Game of Thrones, and I'm driving around in my car, or I get out of the car and stuff, and, like, I see something in the real world that makes me think of this series, and I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I'm freaking stoked. So, here we go. A hero's welcome. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm great, man. I'm just looking over some text messages I have. I have two of my brothers have been messaging me about this because they're both very, very big Wheel of Time fans, and so they're just trying to see what all they had been saying to me. Just like, my brother Jeremy is like, I like the podcast, and he wants to. It seems like spoil everything for me, so I'm kind of I'm kind of like, okay. And he has he's actually coming out to visit me here in about a week or two, and so he's got the black book, so I'm sure we're going to be talking certainly some about that. I did get my hands on the white book, and Ez and I are going to be talking a little bit about that. It's kind of like a companion. So there's the black book, which is kind of like a companion guide. The world book is like the world of Robert Jordan. So the black, I think you said, Ez, is more of like an encyclopedia,
yes,
whereas the white is more of just helping describe some of the world and things like Aja and warders and what are these things without necessarily spoiling it.
Yeah, and it definitely goes into, like, more of the histories. When, as you read this first book too, you'll see. We talked last week 2 weeks ago in our extended edition about Manetheren and sort of the histories to the two rivers. So it's like he had all this stuff in his mind, and he had to sort of know something about the history to this world that he was creating, and he only gave us bits and pieces of it in the main series, which is fascinating. That an author has to have the whole world created well enough to where they can sort of weave in different references to ages, that have passed, which is crazy. So that book actually gives us more of a cohesive look at those various ages and empires that rose and fell, and it's fascinating. So I think that's going to be fun for us to read. The first chapter is actually really kind of what we're going to be talking about today, which is about the power and this one power from the true source. So
yeah, absolutely. So man, doing this in these bigger segments, when we were first doing this, we're like, is it going to be too challenging? But I don't think so, because there's just so much to talk about. And I think the way we're going to be doing it, where we're going to kind of do essentially 3 parts, kind of get a little bit about the world and the stuff we're seeing, then hyper focusing on what we think is kind of the biggest, most important part of that segment, and then just going over some of the big plot points, since we're covering around 7 chapters. I think it's just a good way to do it, and you and I are both just pumped, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it leaves plenty of room for individuals who want to, follow up on a spoiler series, or they want to talk more, or they want to go check out the extended edition, or just interact in our Patreon community or on Twitter or whatever. So yeah, we're hoping that's just a lot of fun. And I think the pace we have laid out is actually pretty good. We're going to get through, 3 to 4 books this year, and we're prepping for that show. I want Sir Matt to be watching that show going, holy cow, that's what a Drakkar looks like. That's what that's how they decided to go. That's the costume or the makeup or whatever, and then this is what a Trolloc looks like. It's gonna be awesome to see how they create this world, into a TV show. So
yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, Sir Ezra, I think, man, other than that, everything doing good? You everything going okay, man?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm stoked. I actually have to, quickly say too, I am overwhelmed by the support we got on Patreon. We already have to do.
I was absolutely.
Yeah, I just literally blown away.
We've hosted what we really consider to be one episode, and we already smashed our first Patreon goal. So it's just whoa.
Yeah, we smashed it. It was so we're actually doing our first selection. So as we grow on that, platform, we do a selection, basically kind of like a giveaway. And yeah, so we have our first giveaway to do, and I'm going to kind of get that arranged, and yeah, it's either going to be a book, or it might even be whether it be the white book or the black book. We'll decide, and we'll send you guys something kind of cool, and yeah, kind of go from there. So that's happening, and it's fantastic. And also, we're getting on our thread, so this is cool. I didn't think we'd have this early, but we have comments and thoughts about the last episode, and in part 1 to Eye of the World, which is cool. So after each of these, I kind of go on and I post a discussion thread where folks can go and tell us what they thought about the chapter. Again, we picked these 3 major points, as Sir Matt said, sort of the overview, lay of the land, world building, hyper focus on a point, and then hit those plot points. There's tons of stuff that I think people are going to be like, you didn't cover this. And I want you guys to leave comments about that, because then we will in our follow-up section or our recap, for the following episode. So, but I'm doing awesome. I literally am. I think I'm going to be talking a mile a minute, because I get so excited during these episodes, with this series. I get so pumped, man. I remember when I was first telling you about this, and it was like when you used to tell me about Dragon Ball Z, and you used to tell me the stories from various video games and stuff. We would just sit there for hours, and you would just run me through the whole story. I attempted to do that, and I just realized okay, I just need the overall premise, just basically the prophecies of the dragon, and that was enough, and we were just hooked and then into this. So it's just crazy. So anyways, doing great. Let's head over to what we call, that's our Hero's Welcome. We're going to head over to the Village Council, where we just kind of discuss some show news, go over some of our polls, and just sort of recap here. So again, one thing, I don't know if I mentioned this last time or not, but that principal photography had started on September 16th. We did a
little bit, yeah.
Do it, yeah. So, that's exciting. There's if you have not yet, you definitely need to go follow. If you're on Twitter, that is the Wheel of Time on Prime, I think, is what, something like that. On Twitter there, they've got casting announcements, and I haven't seen an update recently since we last recorded, but Rafe Judkins is still running the whole thing, and they've got their writers in there, and there's a lot of different people have been cast already, so you can go check that out. Season 2 is approved. All that good stuff is still there. But as we get maybe more, or if you guys hear of things that are interesting or rumors or stuff we should probably know, let us know. I think that would be kind of cool. I was a little surprised, and I guess maybe as we get a little further along, we can talk about the actual cast members who were picked, because I was surprised if you go look at them, like what they are showing us. Something interesting in this series, the breaking of the world that they talk about. It's already been referenced in the prologue with Lews Therin. The world was broken, and groups of people were moved around, and I think intermingled a little bit too. So it's interesting to see, I guess, just who they're casting, and yeah, like I don't know. It doesn't. I'm just surprised, I guess, at some of the people who they have cast, and like the way these people look too. I guess it's just like kind of shocking, because you hear about Two Rivers folk and you hear about the Aiel, and it's actually a big deal about, like, well, you know, certain people who are from this region, you know, don't look like they should, air quote should, which is the thing. So yeah, we could talk more about that later, but I just think it's kind of interesting to look. They just got some great looking, great actors coming in to play these folks. The guy who they have playing Matt, I can't remember his name, but he looks like a Matt. He looks like what I picture as Matt, right. And it cracks me up. So
well, yeah, and for me, I think the coolest casting that I've seen so far, and I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about this last time or not, is Tam. Right, because the actor who's playing Tam is I don't know his name. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he in Game of Thrones, he plays Roose Bolton, and you know Roose Bolton in Game of Thrones is kind of this not really good guy, man.
Yeah,
the Boltons are these people that, you know, they flay people, right?
Right.
You know, that's like they have like their the sigil of their house. You know, they flay people. He stabs essentially the Starks are kind of our main protagonist in the back. He's kind of like one of their underlings, just in terms of the Starks are their liege lords, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's kind of a villain, and so now we're going to be seeing him as a good guy playing Tam Althor, and I think in just, you know, what I know about that actor and what I've briefly seen so far about Tam Althor, I'd be like, I think he sounds like that kind of a guy, so I think it seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, I hear that. So something, it's gonna be weird just kind of seeing him, and because it's gonna be really awkward seeing him as a good guy, just from my only really other experience with him, it being Game of Thrones, and being this we're talking dark kind of a guy. So. Yeah, he's gonna nail it though. It's gonna be great.
Right. Yeah.
So a couple people they've got, like, oh my gosh, I can't even go over all these names yet with you. But like,
well, don't.
Yeah, I'm not. I can't. Like, I could say their name. I don't think it would really matter yet. But man, they just had an account. 3 more casting announcements as of December 23rd. And they're pretty interesting characters. And what's funny is some of the characters that are just mentioned by name. You remember how I'm going to make a quick little reference here to Game of Thrones, like some of the actors changed. So you had in season 1, Beric Dondarrion was a different actor than we had later on. I don't know if I think they're thinking way ahead here, because I just looked at some of the actors that they've picked for people who are only mentioned and briefly seen in this first book. And I'm like,
but will become bigger deals later on.
But become bigger deals. So I'm like, wow, they're really thinking ahead here, and that's sort of what gives me hope. In that Amazon is looking at not just this first season, but they're making sure, guys, just know we're greenlighting a second season pretty early. So this all needs to be, we need to weave, if you will, some of these threads together from season to season. So, which is pretty cool. Okay, yeah. So there's that. I also posted, God, I cannot remember I've read, so I go back and forth on like reading the section that we're on plus plowing ahead. So one of the polls I posted over on Patreon is, if you lived in Gai'don, would you have followed the false dragon? So correct me if I'm wrong, Sir Matt, but you have heard of the false dragon, right?
Well, they say he's the false dragon, but I don't,
Right. But you've heard that reference. Okay, cool.
That's what I have. They say the people over there. Yeah,
people are like,
I love the audiobook. I gotta say,
yeah.
So I mostly I do really well with audiobooks. And then I kind of go back, and so a handful of things. One, really quick here, the the spellings for a lot of these things are just, they're kind of tricky at first. I remember when I was messaging you and I was trying to spell Aes Sedai, and I was like, I literally put like I and then a space and then like S, and I was like, no, it's like AES.
Yeah.
And so then it's just, the voice of the guy on the audiobooks is great. But it's just like Gai'don and false dragon. It's like I don't know like how to describe like what it is he's doing with his voice, but it's great. So
I think is it Michael Kramer? I think maybe is
I don't know, but
he does
he's great.
Job.
Does he do all of the audiobooks?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, let me make sure. Because I'm all for that. I mean, that, otherwise, like the pronunciations are just so difficult. Like
right.
kind of get tripped up even when we were talking about Manetheren and the kings and queens there.
Yeah,
because
because some people have messaged us and been like, oh, you should listen to the audiobooks for the pronunciations. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, I will. If I and again, this is my first read, so I'm sure that I will, those will be improved upon as we go forward here. But it's certainly interesting, in Game of Thrones, which we also do. It's interesting going back and forth between the show and the books because, and I'm sure this will happen when the show comes out, is they may change some of the names. In Game of Thrones, some of the characters you have, you have Varys, right, in the audiobooks, Varys, or Peter in the show, Patyr in the books, right. Sansa and Sansa, it's just different going back and forth. So I'm sure when the show comes out and we get some new listeners that are coming from the show, be like, you guys don't even know what you're doing, like pronouncing these names.
Yeah. Well, and actually what's crazy is that there are, I've even heard, and this is no joke, I've listened to this enough times, I listen to the audiobooks as well, where the way that when he started recording Eye of the World, they actually got feedback on some of the pronunciations, and it does change slightly, nothing major.
Yeah.
But there are some words and places that will change a little bit because I'm like,
right. And in some book series, I've noticed when you have different audiobooks, right? Like different people will pronounce. Even then, you'll have different people pronounce things differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like even in this, the companion book, that guy pronounces. So the white book, right, that we're going to be doing on Patreon, he pronounces things slightly differently than in the main series. So it's kind of like, which is it?
Right, exactly. And so, as long as it's close and we understand, we're kind of on the same page about who and what we're talking about, I think it's fine. And everybody's just got to give everybody a little bit of grace because these are, really the spellings of some of these places and stuff. It's just, it's awesome. It's crazy. But anyways, yeah. So a lot of fun. The poll though, just real quick, I posed this question as to would you have followed the false dragon? And I really want people to kind of think about as you read this series, like depending on where you are, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the series. It's like people base decisions upon these rumors. And I love how he incorporates the tavern conversation where 3 things are said. Only one of them is like close to the truth, and it's not actually the truth, but we do know what happened a chapter ago, but it's funny to hear people talking in the next city or the next tavern about things that happened, and you're like, oh, they're close, but they're not quite onto it. And so when you hear about the false dragon, or even like us getting sort of privy to some of the stuff from the Age of Legends and us knowing as a reader what happened and who was fighting on which side, whether it be the light or the dark, and how that has gotten twisted and perverted through the ages, and some of these things have been lost, is fascinating. So yeah, that's I guess all I can say really there. But it was actually a pretty split poll. We had a couple people say yes, they would have followed, and some who absolutely would not have followed this dragon. And I think, I say, quote, false dragon, he is proclaiming himself to be the dragon reborn. And that is something Tom Maryland is talking about, and Podon Fane Fane had showed up and was talking about the battle in Gai'don and everything that was taking place, and had the Emmons Fielders all riled up and everything, but really, we'll have to see. We'll have to keep our eye on it, because that's a big, rumor brewing, battles and stuff taking place, and this, I'm a man who can channel. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, all right, looks like we have a discussion thread here. Sir Ezra?
We do. So, time to get into the wheel weaves here, and let's get into the reading and the meat of this. As I said, we posted a discussion thread, so I just want to throw a shout out here to some of our patrons. James Nutter, we have Lady Amanda is in there as well, just kind of talking about thoughts on the first few chapters. And Sir James actually said, this is funny, he said, hopefully no one bites my head off, but the first 17 chapters feels like a better version of the Fellowship of the Ring. And I couldn't help but just kind of laugh. I was like, light save us. I can't believe you said that. But there is a lot of connection between this series and the Lord of the Rings. And it just,
yeah. Well, and it's like our band of heroes are getting together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, also, very similarly to in Lord of the Rings, when they're looking for the hobbits and they're kind of running away, and they run into Aragorn, Strider, right? It does feel quite similar to Rand, and the village being attacked by Trollocs, and then kind of running out with Lady Moraine. It does feel very similar. I mean, the stag and lion, and then the prancing pony.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep. Exactly. And it's also like, it's just, I don't know. It's got that same feel, that same vibe, but yet it's different. And so instead of like an old, gray wizard showing up, we have this beautiful lady who has powers, and it's almost like what you would, I don't know, call like a witch, right? And but here she is leading us off on a quest. So it's just kind of flipped a little bit. And it's fantastic. So I thought that was kind of funny. Let's see. We also had Lady Amanda kind of saying that. Let me scroll on down here. So she mentions that one of her favorite parts of the section of part 1 was Tam's fever dream stuff. I think that whole section is something that can get a whole lot of rabbit trail or whole theories going. But based off of the one spoiler I do know about the series, I have a feeling we find out exactly what happened later on. So I'm trying not to speculate too hard and derail myself. Love that the girls are coming along on this mission quest thing. I have a feeling Egwene is going to be a BA later on. And I'm also
I'm right there with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm also starting to really like Nynaeve way more than I thought I would, and that's the thing. These characters, they can grow on you. There's give and take, I guess, and we learn and we grow with them. So yeah, but yeah, Nynaeve is growing on Lady Amanda. I didn't like her in the Two Rivers, but she seems to be loosening up a bit, and it's good for her. Reading ahead, I think that her and Lan have got some sparks going on. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
And that is entertaining. Hope that goes somewhere later on. Also, Rand's dreams are ridiculously freaky, and the dead rats in the inn are just gross. Poor cat getting blamed for being a slob. Laugh out loud. And I was like, yeah, definitely pay attention to the rats. The rats are a big deal. So... yeah, okay. So those are just some of the thoughts. We also have a little communique later on from one of our patrons at the end of the show that we will discuss. So with that, I think let's dive into the summary here of these chapters.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I have a quote here that I think I would like to read here as kind of you talk about like the moral of the story, right?
Yeah.
Did you know, Sir Ezra, that it is better to spit in a wolf's eye than cross an eye Sedai? Okay, that's
let's go.
If I had one takeaway, that's what I've learned. But okay, so We're chapters 10 through 17. Chapter 10, the group sets off. Tom and Egwene go with them. Chapter 11, the group reach Tarrant Ferry. Chapter 12, they cross the Tarrant and Moraine sinks the ferry. She tests Egwene, who channels for the first time. We're definitely going to be covering that. Chapter 13, the group enters Baelon. Chapter 14, the group arrive at the Stag and Lion. Rand has a dream of Balzamon. Chapter 15, Rand meets Min, who tells him she sees many strange things in the future for him and his friends. He gets into trouble when Mat plays a trick on some white cloaks. Chapter 16, Nynaeve arrives and tries to make the Two Rivers folk go back with her. They refuse, and she decides to accompany them. Chapter 17, Rand meets a Myrddraal. The group flee Baerlon, forcing their way past a group of white cloaks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, this one's this is good. It's jam packed. I mean, we if you'll recall in the last batch of chapters there, we had the attack. We're learning about our characters, and we realize that the Shadow, the Dark One, or whoever is after our main cast, and they must leave the Two Rivers. So here we go. This is them off on that quest, and they've got to go with Moraine, and just believe that they are leading whatever threat it may be that they themselves are actually a threat to their loved ones if they stay. So they've got to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, all right. So we have this broken down again. Last time we do about 3 segments here. With segment 1 being kind of world building. Who are some of the people, places, things we're introduced to? Chapter 2, kind of what we're calling our hyper focus point. And today it's going to be Egwene uses the power. That's pretty big deal. Be reading quite a bit of section from the books there. And then number 3 is kind of our main plot point. So let's start with part 1 here, some world building. So some of the things I kind of pulled out here, and Sir Ezra is going to kind of explain them just a little bit more in detail, is Ajas, warders, and the Drakkar.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So which one do you want to start with? What do you think?
I think Ajas.
Ajas. Okay. This is cool because we had a question about this. As people sign up on Patreon, we've got, you can be an Ashaman, you can be an Aes Sedai. There's all sorts of really cool, levels that you can hit up there. So be sure to check those out. But someone was asking, do I get to pick my Aja? Absolutely, you do. And so we're going to kind of run through that. So really, so we know that Moraine shows up here, and we've heard about Aes Sedai, and we're not to trust them. We don't want to get caught up in their plots and all this kind of stuff. I mean, everyone's warning our characters to not trust these people. I mean, Tom Marilyn, Tam, even a little bit. Just it's crazy. But at the same time, we do see the mayor kind of be like, okay, this person is helping. Moraine is helping the people in the village and saving lives, and maybe saving Tam's life. So how bad can she be? Anyways, so these individuals come from Tar Valon, and that's actually where we're going, right? That's sort of what Moraine says. We're going to a place called Tar Valon, and this is the main, city, place, location, dwelling of this order of Aes Sedai. So yeah, let me pull up here Ajas. We've got, and this really can come from the Wheel of Time companion book. Let me actually just pull this up here. This is the black book. And let's see. Okay, so societies. We're looking at Ajas. Here's what it says. Societies among the Aes Sedai, 7 in number and designated by colors. Blue, red, white, green, brown, yellow, and gray. All Aes Sedai, except the Amerlin seat, belonged to one. And so some of this stuff, I don't really think it hurts for any of you to hear about some of the, the goings on of the tower. I mean, it just really is like these are titles and positions that yet don't really make a lot of sense. But you start to understand there's a structure, there's like a hierarchy here, and you learn that there are different factions inside of the White Tower. So Aes Sedai, just because you're an Aes Sedai, you have a role inside of that overall order. So you belong to an Aja, whether that be the blue Aja, the brown, the gray, the green, the red, the white, the yellow, and some rumor that there's another.
Okay, and so do they so there's a do they kind of control specific regions?
So that's great question. So like they so really I'll go over sort of some of this with you. The blue Aja concern themselves with like causes. So they are like a lot of them stay and study and work through the White Tower in Tarvalon, but clearly Moraine is out roaming around, right, doing her own thing. So they do go on, whether it's research task or whatever. A lot of them too, you'll notice that a lot of the leaders of these nations in Randland, they have an Aes Sedai next to them, almost like a counselor or something.
Is that what we call the world, Randland?
Randland, yeah. They get the continent. Yeah. That's what I think a lot of people have called it. So, but yeah, so like the blue Aja, they're concerned with causes. The brown Aja, they concern themselves with knowledge. The gray Aja, they concern themselves with like mediation. So if you had a dispute over land or something, or a negotiation going down, they would go and they would be the ones sort of negotiating. The green Aja, they concern themselves with like war and battle and preparing. So they are, they can use sort of their powers to battle. Really, they're kind of like the battle Aja. The red Aja, they concern themselves with preventing another breaking. So their whole task is to find men who can channel, and they gentle those men, which we can talk about later. You have the white Aja, who concern themselves with logic. So you've got that, and then the last one, you have the yellow Aja, and they concern themselves with healing. They're the healers. So they each have their own kind of function and stuff and thing that they're working on, or a speciality, a gift that they're honing. So yeah, I guess that's the best way to kind of understand that. It does go into, and I didn't want to do this, but there are, I guess like as each Aja is trying to recruit, when you first go to the tower and you learn about everything, you then later on you're selected into an Aja, or you get to choose, an Aja, and it's like, so the blue Aja, for example, is it is the smallest after the white. The brown is sort of that, let's see here, they're kind of middle of the row. Gray, they're the third largest Aja. Green, they're the second largest, and then red is the largest group. So you start to, if there ever was, inside of every organization, there's power struggles, and people are trying to kind of move their way up, gain some influence, do whatever. But yeah, that's sort of, I guess, all you really need to know right now about that. Now, you also brought up warders, and these are things that Matt is bringing up that he kind of questions and
that
things that were
stuff that we've seen so far.
Yeah. So you've talked about like a warder. Sometimes the Aes Sedai are bonded to their Gai'don or their warder, and it's someone that goes with them. So when they leave the tower and they're out on these, whatever it might be, research mission or whatever, these are, it's funny because you talk about where do people stand on the Aes Sedai. Do you trust them? Can you trust them? What are they up to? And if you can't trust someone like that, then are they working for the shadow or are they working for the light? Who are they working for? So I think there's still a lot of there's a lot of mystery around the Aes Sedai as far as like country folk and small folk who are out in Randland and they don't really know. So, and also there are dark friends out and about. You don't want to be attacked by one of them. And so your warder is there to kind of protect you. They're very skilled warriors, and they also are enhanced with the one power through their bond with their Aes Sedai.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about the one power when we get to our second part of this, because Egwene uses it and it's explained a little bit further. But basically, this first segment is where I kind of pull some stuff out that I see, and I'm like, I need you to explain this to me a little bit further. And so, without necessarily spoiling stuff. So, and then the final one here we kind of have is Drakkar.
Yeah, yep. So Drakkar, let me pull that up here. Basically, and this is something that as they're going, as they're getting to the Taran Ferry and they cross and everything, they're sort of shocked. We've heard about Trollocs, and we know that's kind of like the foot soldiers of the Dark One, of the dark side. And you have then Murdraw or Fades, who are their overlords. Not as many of them, and they might drive like a legion of Trollocs or something. And then you have Drakkar, which they also are remnants of humans. I'm not going to tell you really who maybe they are created by or any of that yet, but they're essentially shadow spawn, and they assist the Dark One. They are God, I can't even go into some of their powers yet because it's sort of a shock later on when you learn about them. Right now they can fly. I mean, they're overtop flying, and it's almost like a huge winged bat, but yet it's like a vampire, really. I mean, I guess if you think about it like that, they're able to cross the skies. They hunt like a bird of prey. They have this loud like scream. So here's a quote from the book. Let's see. A scream ripped the darkness. A sound like a man dying under sharp knives. So that'll scare the heck out of you, right? I mean, you hear that cut across the sky, and So they are trying to avoid that Drakkar that is like attacking them, and it actually seems like Moraine and Lan are a little bit like shook because this is a step up. They're the Dark One is definitely in pursuit here. I mean, they got the right boys. They definitely are I guess of interest to the Dark One.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's more to those, so it's good that you pointed that we pulled that
right. Well,
that shadow spawn out.
Yeah. Just some further explanation, and as we're going through, because again, the first read for myself and certainly a lot of people. So, okay. Well, let's move on to kind of what are going to be the meat of our discussion today. And that is, I kind of want to focus on Egwene a little bit. We focused on Rand. Something special about Rand was the last time. Well, there's definitely something special about Egwene. It seems like here. So I have a couple passages pulled up here. So from chapter 10, this is when they're leave taking, right? So they're getting ready to leave and stuff like that. And so suddenly Moraine was in the doorway. You talked to your father about this journey. She was clothed in dark gray from head to foot, with a skirt divided for riding astride, with the serpent ring was the only gold she wore now. Rand eyed her walking staff. Despite the flames he had seen, there was no sign of charring or even soot. I couldn't go off without letting him know. She eyed him for a moment with pursed lips before turning to the others. And did you also decide that a note was not enough? Matt and Perrin talked on top of each other, assuring her that they had only left notes, the way she had said. Nodding, she waved them to silence and gave Rand a sharp look. What is done already woven in the pattern, Lan? The horses are ready, the warder said, and we have enough provisions to reach Baerlon with some to spare. We can leave at any time now. We can leave at any time. I suggest now. Not without me. Egwene slipped into the stable, a shawl-wrapped bundle in her arms. Rand nearly fell over his own feet. Lan's sword had come half out of its sheath when he saw who it was, and he shoved the blade back. His eyes suddenly flat. Perrin and Matt began babbling to convince Moraine that they had not told Egwene about leaving. The Aes Sedai ignored them. She simply looked at Egwene, tapping her lips thoughtfully with one finger. The hood of Egwene's dark brown cloak was pulled up, but not enough to hide the defiant way she faced Moraine. I have everything I need here, including food, and I will not be left behind. I'll probably never get another chance to see the world outside the two rivers. This isn't a picnic trip into the Waterwood, Egwene, Matt growled. He stepped back when she looked at him from under brows. Thank you, Matt. I wouldn't have known. Do you think you three are the only ones who want to see the world outside? I've dreamed about it as long as you have, and I don't intend to miss this chance. And then they go a little bit more here about well, there could be Trollocs, it could be dangerous.
Yeah. Right.
And then very well, Moraine said after a moment, "You may come with us." A startled expression darted across Lan's face, and it was gone in an instant, leaving him outwardly calm, but furious words erupted from him. "No, Moraine, it's part of the pattern now, Lan." "It's ridiculous," he retorted. "There's no reason for her to come along, and every reason for her not to." "There is a reason for it," Moraine said calmly. "A part of the pattern, Lan." The warder's stony face showed nothing, but he nodded slowly.
Wow.
Yeah, she's part of the pattern, Lan.
Yeah, get it through your head.
Get it through your head.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that is kind of neat. It's like looking at, oh man, you go back to just like the wheel weaving as it wills and creating this pattern. Moraine sees it. That's sort of her thing, is to recognize when something is being woven, and that it's almost like shocking that in all of their secrecy, this child would still be able to, knows what they're up to and knows what they're about, and is pushing forward. And the other thing too that Moraine is not telling us right here, or maybe she does, maybe it's just a little bit later on, is that like the tower is in need of girls. So she doesn't necessarily say that, but like, yeah, that's a kind of a big deal. She's like, it's odd that this girl shows up and she wants to leave, because a lot of the people who are from the Two Rivers are sort of like, that's beyond our border. That's I don't know. They don't want to leave. Right. And they hear about strange lands and stuff. And again, it is a lot like the Shire, where the hobbits are just like, that's some crazy stuff going on across the border, and that's none of our business. But she has this desire to leave and go with them, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. So I think Moraine appreciates that and sees something in it and says, yes, this is a part of the pattern. So. Yeah,
and this is where the terminology, the pattern, starts coming up. And so it's, is it the wheel weaves, man. So it's clearly something of importance that we're going to see going forward, in that it's the pattern. It's
the pattern. It is the freaking pattern, man. Yeah. Like it is a big deal. And actually, a little bit about some of the stuff that is special about some of these characters, just because of our talks. Right. Maybe before this, but there is something special about these characters. Obviously, these are our main characters, and so they are. You can almost make the case this is all part of the pattern, right? This is meant to be. You're looking for. I mean, the whole thing is like, it's not something that you can, like, the roadmap is not laid out here perfectly. So that's why there is room for an argument between Lan and Moraine. It's just she sees it clear, and she sees that this is the way. So, yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting to kind of follow what is a part of the pattern and what maybe, isn't in the works. Or what we try to weave in ourselves, may not be what the wheel intends. So
right. So yeah, I mean, obviously without spoiling it, to me it seems like, just from what I'm seeing so far here, is it's some sort of vision that she has, and she obviously, there's prophecies and stuff like that, and so she's like, well, maybe it looks like it could fit inside of a prophecy or something or whatever, and so
that's
clearly, really, I think if you're part of the pattern, I would have to argue, with my limited scope here, that it's something obviously of importance.
Oh yeah. As you would typically say, it's a big deal. All right, if you're a part of the pattern, it's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And so this, as we continue on here, this causes obviously some turmoil for Rand a little bit here. Rand, as we'll get to later, when Egwene. No, we'll just keep going and we'll get to it here. So now another little thing here from chapter 11, lying low on Cloud's neck, Rand kept a worried eye on Bella and her rider. When he had said the shaggy mare could stay with the others, he had not meant on the run. She kept up now only by running, as he had not thought she could. Lan had not wanted Egwene in their number. Would he slow for her if Bella began to flag? Or would he try to leave her behind? The Aes Sedai and the Warder thought Rand and his friends were important in some way, but for all of Moiraine's talk of the pattern, he did not think it included Egwene in that importance.
Dang.
Yeah. Okay. So now, so Rand. So I mean, if you're Rand, you've got to be looking at this. It's like, well, what's this whole pattern business mean? And now you're telling me that Egwene is part of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would be certainly confused or I don't know. I would be confused.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how about this? So one thing he's noticing here is that there's a distinction between Moiraine sought out these boys, and although Egwene is a part of the pattern, is she that important? And yes, I mean, really, it's really, when we say that too, I don't want anybody to think that we're like picking on characters or anything at all, because even Moiraine at this time doesn't know. We're just trying to figure this out. Something is telling her that these boys are important because their homes and farms were attacked. But yeah, Egwene is really important, but at this point in time, Rand's starting to wonder, like, how important is she? Like, and the only reason he's wondering that is because he doesn't want her to get hurt. He doesn't want, if they're not going to fall back and protect her, then by God, he will, okay? He is going to fall back. He's going to take care of her. So I just think that's kind of interesting to note. And it's also something interesting that'll come up here in a little bit is that, Bella is running faster than he thought.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So maybe Bella's a part of the pattern. Okay.
I mean, at this point, I think everybody's part of the pattern. So,
yeah.
So, okay. So now I want to go to chapter 12, and this is where I'm going to read quite a lengthy section here, because this is what I found to be like what I thought pretty important thing. It's going to explain a little bit about the power and Egwene by tapping into it a little bit here. So, I'm going to start a little bit earlier than I have here in the doc. Just It says, the shrill scream of the Drakkar suddenly echoed from above the fog-covered river. Even the horses froze. Again, it came closer now, and again, piercing Rand's skull like needles. Then the cries were fading until they had faded away entirely. Luck, Land breathed. It searches the river for us. He gave a quick shrug and abruptly sounded matter-of-fact. Let's get inside. I could do with some hot tea and something to fill my belly. Rand was the first to crawl on hands and knees through the opening in the tangle of trees and down a short tunnel. At the end of it, he stopped, still crouching. Ahead was an irregularly shaped space, a woody cave, easily large enough to hold them all. The roof of the tree trunks and branches came too low to allow any but the women to stand. Smoke from a small fire on a bed of river stones drifted up and through. The draft was enough to keep the space free of smoke, but the interweaving was too thick to let out even a glimmer of the flames. Moiraine and Egwene, their cloaks thrown aside, sat cross-legged facing one another beside the fire. The one power, Moiraine was saying, comes from the true source. The driving force of creation, the force the Creator made to turn the wheel of time. She put her hands together in front of her and pushed them against each other. Saidin, the male half of the true source, and Saidar, the female half, worked against each other and at the same time together to provide the force. Saidin, she lifted one hand, then let it drop, is fouled by the touch of the Dark One, like water with a thick slice of rancid oil floating on top. The water is still pure, but it cannot be touched without touching the foulness. Only Saidar is still safe to be used. Egwene's back was to Rand. He could not see her face, but she was leaning forward eagerly. Matt poked Rand from behind and muttered something, and he moved on into the tree cavern. Moiraine and Egwene ignored his entry. The other men crowded in behind him, tossing off damp cloaks, settling around the fire, and holding hands out to the warmth. Lan, the last to enter, pulled water bags and leather sacks from a nook in the wall, took out a kettle, and began to prepare tea. He paid no attention to what the women were saying, but Rand's friends began to stop toasting their hands and stare openly. Tom pretended that all of his interest was engaged in loading his thickly carved pipe, but the way he leaned forward toward the women gave him away. Moraine and Egwene acted as if they were alone. No, Moraine said in answer to a question Rand had missed. The true source cannot be used up any more than the river can be used up by the wheel of a mill. The source is the river, the Aes Sedai, the water wheel. And you really think I can learn? Egwene asked. Her face shone with eagerness. Rand had never seen her look so beautiful or so far from him. I can become an Aes Sedai. Rand jumped up, cracking his head against the low roof of logs. Tom Merrilin grabbed his arm, yanking him back. Don't be a fool, the Gleeman murmured. He eyed the woman. Neither seemed to have noticed, and the look he gave Rand was sympathetic. It's beyond you now, boy. Child, Moraine said gently, only a very few can learn to touch the true source and use the one power. Some of those learn to a great degree, some to a lesser. You are one of the bare handful for whom there is no need to learn. At least touching the source will come to you whether you want it or not. Without the teaching you can receive in Tar Valon, though you will never learn to channel it fully, and you may not survive. Men who have the ability to touch Saidin, born in them die, of course, and if the Red Aja does not find them and gentle them. Tom growled deep in his throat, and Rand shifted uncomfortably. Men like those whom the Aes Sedai spoke were rare. He had only heard of 3 in his whole life, and thank the light, never in the 2 rivers. But the damage they did before the Aes Sedai found them was always bad enough for the news to carry, like the news of wars, earthquakes, or destroyed cities. He had never really understood what the Ajas did. According to the stories, there were societies among the Aes Sedai that seemed to plot and squabble amongst themselves more than anything else, but the stories were clear on one point. The Red Aja held its prime duty to be the prevention of another breaking of the world, and they did it by hunting down every man who ever dreamed of wielding the one power. Mat and Perrin looked as if they suddenly wished they were back home in their beds. But some of the women died too. It's hard to learn without a guide. The women we do not find, those who live, often become, well, in this part of the world, they might become wisdoms in their villages. The Aes Sedai paused thoughtfully. The old blood is strong in Edmund's Field, and the old blood sings. I knew you for what you were the moment I saw you. No Aes Sedai can stand in the presence of a woman who can channel, or who is close to her change and not feel it. She rummaged in the pouch at her belt and produced the small blue gem on a gold chain that she had earlier worn in her hair. You are very close to your change, your first touching. It will be better if I guide you through it. That way you will avoid the unpleasant effects that come to those who must find their own way. Egwene's eyes widened as she looked at the stone, and she wet her lips repeatedly. Does that have the power? Of course not, Moraine snapped. Things do not have the power, child. Even an Angreal is only a tool. This is just a pretty blue stone, but it can give off light. Here. Egwene's hands trembled as Moraine laid out the stone on her fingertips. She started to pull back, but the Aes Sedai held both her hands in one of hers and gently touched the others to the side of Egwene's head. Look at the stone, the Aes Sedai said softly. It is better this way than fumbling alone. Clear your mind of everything but the stone. Clear your mind and let yourself drift. There is only the stone and emptiness. I will begin it. Drift and let me guide you. No thoughts. Drift. Rand's fingers dug into his knees. His jaws clenched until they hurt. She has to fail. She has to. Light bloomed in the stone, just one flash of blue, and then gone. No brighter than a firefly, but he flinched as if he had been blinding. Egwene and Moraine stared into the stone, faces empty, as another flash came and another until the azure light pulsed like the beating of a heart. It's the Aes Sedai, he thought desperately. Moraine's doing it, not Egwene. One last feeble flicker, and the stone was merely a bauble again. Rand held his breath. For a moment, Egwene continued to stare at the small stone. Then she looked up at Moraine. I thought I felt something, but perhaps you're mistaken about me. I'm sorry I wasted your time. I have wasted nothing, child. A small smile of satisfaction flitted across Marine's lips. The last light was yours alone. It was, Egwene exclaimed, then slid immediately back into glumness, but it was barely there at all. Now you're behaving like a foolish village girl. Most who come to Tar Valon must study for many months before they can do what you just did. You may go far, perhaps even on the Amyrlian seat one day if you study hard and work hard. You mean, with a cry of delight, Egwene threw her arms around the Aes Sedai. Oh, thank you. Rand, did you hear? I'm going to be an Aes Sedai.
Gosh dang it.
Wow, man.
We've
There's
lost her.
A lot to unpack. A lot.
She's gone.
A lot to unpack from all that. So, I mean, first, it seems like everything up until now, it seems like, Rand and Matt and Perrin always just kind of thought, man, I guess Rand and maybe Egwene will just get together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But now Rand feels further from her than ever. He's almost wishing that she fails.
Yeah.
Like he's losing something. And then also we learn a little bit about the one power. Saidin, the male half, and Saidar. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that correct? And Saidar, the female half. So it seems like the male half is kind of uncontrollable. It's dark power.
Dude. You're there. I mean, you're there. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. Let me just make a quick little. They often refer to, like, when you think of like the Aes Sedai, like the white flame of Tar Valon, and you already kind of know, like the ancient symbol for the Aes Sedai is that like yin and yang symbol, right?
Right.
And so it's funny that you said that. That one side would be, maybe dark. Whereas the other one is light. And it's just kind of funny that you say that, because it made me think of that symbol, and I'm like, oh boy, yeah. It says that there's almost like a taint or this oil that to get to it. The source itself, I mean, Saidin is still there. It's still pure. It's just that to get to it, you have to go through something. And underneath, it's so she said it's unusable, really. I mean, it's still there. You can use it, but it's not without going through the oil, this taint over top of it. So, yeah, she explains the two differences, and then, as you say, that's when she goes into the Ajas and sort of what their roles are, and that the Red Aja, and Rand knew this, all the stories agreed, that the Red were meant to go out and find any man who could channel and gentle him and stop him from channeling. Kind of a big deal. So, yeah, I don't know. And it's just like all this distrust around the Aes Sedai, and you can't trust them, and we don't know what they're up to. And, they always tell the truth, but it might not be the truth that you think they're telling. This whole thing, like, it's almost like it's word games. And so he's just like, no, I mean, I'm losing Egwene to the Aes Sedai. Like, he just doesn't want anything to do with them. And he got that from the village council, from his father, from others. Mm-hmm. Tom Maryland is definitely sitting here, when he had went, by the way, interesting to note something about Tom, this Gleeman, I love him. And he when they talk about the Red Aja and how they still men who can channel, he didn't really like that. He didn't like that at all. Didn't like hearing it. And, he's even saying to us, he's telling Rand, there's nothing you can do. It's beyond you. She's now with an Aes Sedai. It's out of your hands, boy. Mm-hmm. So, geez, I mean, just,
and it seems interesting though. So it seems like, oddly, I'm going to kind of do a Star Wars comparison here, because that's what it just jumps out to me as. It's kind of like the Jedi, before like Star Episode 4, right, when the Jedi don't really exist anymore, like they identify children, like when they're young, like, oh, this is somebody who could become a Jedi. Is that what it seems is that's kind of what they're saying here, is because she says, you live so far, almost, I mean, literally it's like Anakin Skywalker. I mean literally it's like Anakin Skywalker here, where it's like, well, you live out on Tatooine where nobody really goes. Yeah. So you would have been identified earlier. Is that, I mean, same thing with Egwene. Egwene here is kind of what is jumping out to me as is, maybe if you had lived in a bigger city, you would have been identified earlier, but you're still identified early enough to where we could train you.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Moraine might as well be Qui-Gon Jinn, and
I mean, that's what
Anakin.
that's what it's looking
yeah,
like here.
it's actually pretty cool. And so, as you say, it's as if Moraine can. She says that she can feel, she can sense, that the power is in her, and that she can channel. That she is one who has that gift. And she brings up a couple interesting points, and that if I don't help, if I don't guide you through this first sort of change or this first touching, then of the one power, then it could be bad. I mean, you'd still be okay, but there's bad effects. So she wants to kind of guide her and help her through it. And she says, there are others who have maybe, if they weren't picked up, if they weren't identified by the tower, then and they did then touch the one, or use the one power or touch the true source, then they would have some just bad experiences, I guess. But she does liken them to, you might know them as wisdoms, right? They might those that live would maybe be known as wisdoms in your land. And so as you go to different lands,
so is that like nigh?
I mean, Nynaeve is a wisdom.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so there's a connection, and you'll remember the village council was all upset because they wanted to know why Nynaeve wasn't. What were we going to do about the weather? As if she could do something about it. It makes me think of Gandalf and the dwarves wanting him to do something about the deluge. Right? They wanted the rain to go away, and I don't know. There's nothing that can be done. So she can, air quote, listen to the winds or something. She's a wisdom who can. Supposed to be able to whatever have some sort of power, if you will, but yeah, so it's just interesting. Some of that foundation is laid here. We learn about these two powers, one for men and one for women, and they can tap into them. Now I'll give you this: Moraine can sense this. Women can sense it in each other, but they cannot sense it necessarily in a man. So women can't tell whether men have the power, if you will. Okay.
And so men can only tap into the male power, and women can only tap into the female power.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. And it's actually
are they equal? Is there one that's more powerful than the other? Or?
No, it's actually it's the back and forth between the two, the push and pull, the yin and yang that actually drive the wheel of time. I mean, really, is sort of what it's all about. But yeah, no, there are. This is what's kind of cool when we cover this in the White Book. We'll kind of talk about how many men were in the Age of Legends, and they reference this multiple times, that men and women both channeled before the breaking, before the male half of the power was tainted, and men were driven crazy. I mean, it says that the Aja, their whole role was to prevent another breaking. They did not want another breaking of the world to take place, and they believed that it's rumored, right? Legend tells that the men were the ones who broke the world the first time, and so yeah, that's sort of why you have this divide between men and women, and yeah.
So men can't draw upon the power themselves.
They can.
That's because of the warder, right? So land is a.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So land is a warder, and for what it seems like so far is that land gets his power through Moraine.
Yes. So here's something.
So hold on. So sorry. So can she draw so is he using the female power through her, or is he using the male power? So does she actually draw upon it? It's kind of I do find it that is one thing as I read this, I was like, I'm a little confused here.
Yeah. So it's the difference between warders and Aes Sedai is what you're kind of confused about. So okay. So Moraine, when she is working with, right there when she was working with Egwene, they both were drawing from Saidar. They were both drawing from their half of the power. The one power is split into two halves. They were drawing from the female half. That's the only half they can draw from because they are females. Right. When I said that there were different factions, and I said that the yellow faction, this is the easiest one I can think of.
Right,
They are healers, so they can heal, and Moraine, she's just because she's blue Aja, which I think, by the way, I don't know if I think it's mentioned here soon. So Moraine's in the blue Aja, whatever.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah,
she wears a blue shawl. You can kind of figure it out. She can also do some healing too. So we saw that she was healing everyone. One of the things that she picks up on is that Bella was running faster and also didn't need as much healing as the others did. So when she touches them and heals them, that is similar to what she's doing with the warder. She is actually bonded to the warder, though. It's a special thing that they do, and so she has a special bond. She knows where that warder is. The warder also always knows then where the Aes Sedai is. They are linked.
Okay.
It's a special thing that she did.
So Lan can channel the power himself.
No, he actually can't. He can't channel anything really.
Okay.
It's the flow goes one way. It goes from Moraine to him.
So the power so when he uses power, it is technically Saidar.
Yeah, let me let me read this. Let's see here. So warders. Okay, I'm just gonna see what comes out in this. We might get into some spoiler stuff here. I don't know. Let's see.
Well, let's try. I mean, we're trying to avoid it, but yeah.
It's a great question. So warders are companions of the Aes Sedai, bonded to them in some way that others do not understand. Their loyalty is to their Aes Sedai above and beyond everyone and anything else. Most Ajas can bond just one, but Greens, so if you're from the Green Aja, you are allowed as many as you wish. Reds typically don't have a bond at all. So traditionally, warders have been men bonded to a single Aes Sedai. Let's skip some of that. Let's see. So despite tradition, it is possible for one woman to bond a man, or even more than one man, and even a man one who cannot channel. Let's see. I'm gonna skip on down here. Some of this dancing around here. Okay, let me go down to the weave. The warder bond is a thing composed of spirit, a complex weave of over 100 threads laid over the Aes Sedai, then connected to the man to be bonded. Let's see. So it's kind of unknown in the Age of Legends and discovered sometime after. It is in some ways similar to the first sister bond. Okay, that's something different. Never mind. Let's see. Benefits. Here we go. The bond gives the warder the gift of endurance, quick healing, and the ability to sense the taint of the Dark One or Shadow Spawn. It allows him to sense his Aes Sedai and an idea of where she is. The Aes Sedai can also sense her warder and tell if he is approaching. The other gifts she gains are a closely guarded secret, but they are able to take strength from their warder even to the point of death and use the power to compel them into action. This does not... okay, that's all I need to say there. All right, so really what it is let's say... Okay, so not all women can channel and not all men can channel, okay? Right. There's a very small, let's say 5% or whatever of the population who are, force sensitive, if you will.
Exactly.
So let's pretend Land right now is not actually he's not force sensitive. He's not, whatever. So the bond that she creates between them is something that just Moraine did. She uses her weaves and the spirit weave between them to give him endurance. And it's almost like she's healing him. So it's like she's the one healing him. She's the one kind of giving some of her power to him. He's not actually pulling any of it himself. It's just a gift that she gave to him, I guess, is the best way to kind of explain it. Yeah. So it's not like he's not pulling from the male half of the power. He's not even pulling from the female half of the power. He just has a special...
It's like... So her power flows through him, essentially.
Yeah, so he's tapped in, he's bonded to her, and so the benefit of being bonded to her is that he heals a little quicker. He like he knows where she's at. She knows. Like it's also it's great for when you're in a fight and you don't even have to look to know, oh, my Aes Sedai's here or she's there. I have more endurance. I can heal faster. I can well, and the other thing is too is that, so they mention it here, the power of compulsion. I mean, she can he basically gives up his life and his free will. He's bound, bonded to that Aes Sedai, and like believes in the cause of the Aes Sedai and believes in what they are working towards. And so you're an agent of that Aes Sedai. You work for her and you are bound to her. Yeah, that's a good question, man. I mean, I'd never really thought about it like that, or thought that there was that maybe that meant that the warder was something special and could tap into power. It's just that the bond is it's a gift that's given. And that's why I think of healing. It's like when Moraine went over and touches, the horses and touches the Matt and Perrin and stuff. It's not like they did anything special. It's she did that to them.
Right.
She used her power on them. The bond just means she's continually, bonded to and giving some of her power to her warder and elevating him. Yeah.
Okay.
Dang. Whew. Some good stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Right
The only reason I brought it up is just because it seems like specifically the warder and the Aes Sedai have some kind of a connection, and so then it's like, okay, well, so if there are just men out there who can channel, is it it seems like the warder gets their power through the Aes Sedai, but so so I was just so.
Yeah, and so you're wondering, like, because she just explained
she just says that, well, only men only have this power and women only have this power, but it's like, well, hold on a second, because it seems like
Land has powers. Yeah, like seems like Land has powers. Yeah, and what you might be thinking, and what I think maybe is where you were in the beginning of this is like, okay, so since there's that taint over Saidin, which is the male half, maybe the way that Aes Sedai are helping men is that they are just pulling from the female half and giving some to men, and that actually makes sense. That's sort of like they're circumventing the taint and giving some of their power to men, but that's not technically what's happening. But I get kind of why you would think that. It is a little confusing. Yeah.
Okay.
So
right.
and you'll learn more too. Like, I mean, clearly we're going to learn more about. We've heard about Logain. We've already heard about him, and actually as they go into, when they get into Berlon, which we might as well hop there because we're going into our plot points here. They go into. Did you have any more, by the way, on Egwene?
No, that was
okay.
it. No, that was it.
Okay.
That was it. Yeah.
So as they move forward, it's sort of like they catch up on rumors. You talked about the. It is kind of like they show up in Bree, and it's the prancing pony. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it is. They show up there. There's the guard, the watchman at the door at the gate, who happens to know Mistress Alice, right? And not they go by different names and everything, which is kind of cool. But there's talk of Logain, this dragon who can use the one power. So that guy, I'll just tell you right now, like since you're asking this question about who can tap into what, he is tapped into Saidin. So he is tapped into the male half. He is just almost like the male version of an Aes Sedai. And not to be super confusing here, but back in the Age of Legends, the term Aes Sedai meant like you used it for both men and women, because at one point they both could just channel fine. It was no problem. The Dark One struck the counter strike and taints the male half, and so now it's only female Aes Sedai. The male Aes Sedai died out, and if any man can channel, the Red Aja will gentle them. So this is a man who, the Red Aja, they are on their freaking way, man. They are headed down there. There are Aes Sedai who are headed down to Gillidan, and so what Land finds out is a battle did take place, and he's sort of like, filling Moraine in like it's true that some of the Aes Sedai did go. And they've subdued. The rumor is that they've subdued maybe Logain. They've used their power to overcome him. So it's crazy, man. Freaking power battles going on.
That's what it seems like. So
yeah.
All right, man. Okay, well, let's move on over here to point number 3. Major plot points. We have just some of the Rand encounters. We're gonna be talking about the dream. Men and the Fade. So chapter 14, Stag and the Lion, is where we see this dream he's having.
Yeah. Yeah, and so to kind of set this up, I really like one of the characters here, Master Finch. He's kind of moving around. He's a friend of Moraine's. There's a disturbance, though, in Baerlon right now. You run across this faction, and we're going to follow up on this more in the extended edition, but the Children of the Light. They are, you would think that the Children of the Light sounds like a good title, and we're like, they must be good guys. Well, Rand and Matt kind of have a couple encounters with these guys in the streets, and they're not good. So, Moraine is kind of asking about them being in the town, and he says, not to worry, that they're just up to their old tricks. They're claiming that there's an Aes Sedai in Baerlon. And we're sitting here going, oh, crap, they're right. There is one. And you're talking, Master Finch doesn't know who she is, right? She's going by a different name. So, yeah, they're able to get their hot baths, and they're doing their thing. This was kind of funny, just as a plot point goes. Matt cannot keep his mouth shut. He is in there when he's in the bathtub and he's talking and stuff. Like, they're not supposed to be talking about certain things.
Right.
Just keep quiet.
Yeah,
He's just running his mouth because there are people at the door listening. All these servants are running around, and it's sort of like. It's funny because I'm actually at the part, and this is just a quick reference to Deus Damar, which is something that it's a game that's played later on, and I can't wait till you get to it, Sir Matt, because it's like Game of Thrones on steroids, just in people kind of paying kids to listen in on stuff. Imagine Littlefinger and Varys just playing the most ridiculous game ever. Yeah. So it's like in some of these inns and stuff, the way word travels and information, it's just kind of crazy. So anyways, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. There's let's see. So after the baths, Rand he spots this girl in men's clothing, right? She got some short hair. She's with Moraine, and he just sees this girl real quick. She looks at them sharply, nods to Moraine, and then hurries away. That's all he sees. We're gonna come back to that in just a second. So then Land is, as I said, coming up, talking about the rumors of the false dragon, being the victor in Gai'don, and yeah, so that's that, but there are Aes Sedai on the way, so Moraine's kind of saying we should stay here for a few days, whatever. Tom is our gleeman, and Tom is taking this opportunity. He's with this band of characters, but he's going to go down. They're staying at a place called the Stag and Lion, which is awesome. And they're going to go down, and he's going to tell the tale of the Great Hunt, or talk about the Horn of Valir, okay? The heroes of the Horn, all right, Sir Matt? Yeah, that's what he's going to talk about. So he goes down there, and he's talking to Rand a little bit, but as he leaves, Rand drifts into this sleep, okay? And he is in this, shadowy stone hallway, and I want to read just some of this. This is, I want to give a shout out here too. So we reference a lot of different things, whether it be the white book, the black book, actually the textbook. There's summaries on, Fandom Wiki, Tarvalin Library is one. There's tons of resources out here, but I just want to read this because it's a great little summary. Let's see. So he drifts to sleep. He finds himself in a shadowy stone hallway with doors spaced at regular intervals. He walks down the unchanging hallway for a long time before opening one of the doors into a grim stone-walled chamber. Rand finds a man in dark clothing with a mouth and eyes of flame. Rand hurls himself out of the room, across the hallway, and into another room, identical to the first, with the same man there waiting for him, Ba'alzamon. Rand is frightened and tells Ba'alzamon that he is bound in Shale Ghul. Ba'alzamon says that he has never been bound, that he was with Lews Therin Kinslayer when he killed everyone he cared for, and that he whispered in Arthur Hawkwing's ear, and Aes Sedai died. He whispered again, and the High King sent his armies across the Arth Ocean, dooming his dream of one land and one king. Ba'alzamon says that he could control those men. What chance does Rand have? Rand insists that he is dreaming. Ba'alzamon curves his fingers and breaks a rat's back, then tries to break Rand's back to prove to him that he is not dreaming. Rand awakes and finds Lan and Tom asleep. Rand wonders if Moraine can help him with the dreams and if he can trust her. Slowly, sleep comes back over him. So, this dream, this happens a lot, right? The dreams are important, and they're real. They're not just dreams. This is the thing, and I think I want people to pay special, because sometimes when I first read this, I was like, he's having a dream, whatever. Like,
right.
I know that dreams are important, but I think it's not really happening in the real world. No, there's something extra special about the dream world. So I want folks to kind of remember that. And at first, they don't trust Moraine, so they're not going to go to Moraine and really have her kind of explain any of this to them. And so Rand is not the only one who has this dream, by the way. I'm focused on Rand, but Matt and Perrin also have this dream, and they are freaked out, right? So we know Baalzamon as the name of like the Dark One, and this is going to get a little tricky later on. But for right now, this is the big bad guy. And it seems like he said here that he was there with Lews Therin. He says that he was never truly bound, and that he has been influencing, Arthur Hawkwing and other, great lords or Aes Sedai or whatever from time to time. And there's a lot of theories on how he does this and what's going on. But he is trying to get Rand to serve him, essentially. So, I mean, I don't know, any thoughts with that? I mean, like when you first sort of read this.
It's interesting because it just seems like, again, last week our main kind of point was there's something special about Rand, and now it's starting to seem like, well, maybe there's something special about Rand and Matt and Perrin and Egwene, man, that they're all, the pattern, right? And why are all four of these people experiencing pretty significant? I mean, 6 months ago they were just kids in a small village. Now we're seeing dark ones and using the one power, and I mean it is certainly interesting as we go forward. So certainly it's beginning to seem a lot more than like there's something big going on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and so here's, as I said, they all have a similar dream. One thing that's important, and I just want to point this out for some foreshadowing here, in the dream, at first Baalzamon seems to kind of, he notes that like Rand seems thirsty, and he tells him to drink. He points to a goblet on the table. Rand keeps saying, "This is a dream. It has to be." But his mouth did feel like dust. He says, "I am a little." The man leaned forward intently, one hand on the back of a chair, watching him. So you can see like this Baalzamon leaning forward, like, "Oh, you are thirsty." The smell of spiced wine drove home to Rand just how thirsty he was, as if he had nothing to drink in days. "Have I?" With the wine halfway to his mouth, he stopped. Whispers of smoke. Wisp of smoke were rising from the chair back between the man's fingers, and those eyes watched him so sharply, flickering rapidly in and out of flames. Rand licked his lips and put the wine back on the table, untasted. I'm not as thirsty as I thought." The man straightened abruptly, his face without expression. His disappointment could not have been more plain than if he had cursed. Rand wondered what was in that wine. But that was a stupid question. Of course, this was all a dream. Then why won't it stop? "What do you want?" he demanded. "Who are you?" And at this point, he gets pissed. Baalzamon is just pissed, and he starts saying like, that you can't hide forever. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go, you cannot hide from me. I will find you. And so you're just sort of like, what was going on there? Be careful.
Yeah, not in the highest mountain or in the deepest cave.
Yeah. And so it's sort of like, he wants him to be careful. I mean, he warns him. Let me see here. Let's see. Yeah, he goes on to question all sorts of things, like wondering basically why he is on the quest that he's on. Are you expecting glory, power? Did they tell you the eye of the world would serve you? What glory or power is there for a puppet? The strings that move you have been centuries weaving. Your father was chosen by the White Tower, like a stallion roped and led to his business. Your mother was no more than a broodmare to their plans. and those plans lead to your death. So he's trying to let him know that the Aes Sedai have you. You're with them now, and they've got you tied up like crazy, So he actually, it's very important that the section I just read there is very important later on. So
yeah, perhaps you are the one. Little good it will do you.
Yeah. Yep. So they just go back and forth in this arguing, and Rand just sort of keeps denying him. He kind of can't believe that he's in this dream. But if this is the Dark One, he says to him, "You are bound in Shayol Ghul, you and all the Forsaken, bound by the Creator until the end of time." The end of time, Baalzamon mocked. You have lived like a beetle under a rock, and you think your slime is the universe. The death of time will bring me power such as you could not dream of. You are bound. So he keeps saying over and over, you're bound. He believes that he is bound to Shayol Ghul, this place, and that you, not only just Baalzamon, but the Forsaken. So we get this reference to the Forsaken. Who the heck are they? And I can't wait to talk more about them. But and he says, "Fool, I've never been bound." And this is when he gets into how many times he has influenced the world. And
I stood at Luther and Kinslayer shoulder when he did the deed that named him. I was it was I who told him to kill his wife and his children. And then I was the one who gave him the moment of sanity to know what he had done.
So now, if you remember back to the prologue, we read about that character, the one who gave him the sanity. So now you have to ask yourself, that was the betrayer of hope. And is this the same person who's showing up in a dream? Or is this because the betrayer of hope was someone who said that he served the Dark One. He was a servant to the Dark One, and this person is kind of coming at Rand, with flames in his eyes and just sort of this this darkness. Like when he opens his mouth, you can see flames coming from it as well, and he seems like the Dark One, if you will. So, yeah. Anyways,
it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So he eventually kind of gets himself out of this, just saying over and over, this is a dream, you're going to wake up, etc. And so eventually he gets out of it, and he'll talk to his friends later. So that was one big point, and it's just sort of pay attention to the dreams, and really, like everything that was a long dream sequence. Yeah. And you learn about the histories, you learn about this, who they're fighting, and maybe the person who's seeking Rand and Matt and Perrin, and they'll kind of compare their notes later. Yeah, as to did you hear this? Did he say that? What's going on? Yeah. And that's it's fascinating. So, okay.
Okay. All right. Next, we're gonna talk about Min, chapter 15.
Yeah. Just briefly. So, Min and the White Cloaks are actually going to be our extended edition portion here. But I do want to mention this. Let's see. Where do I have her at here? There she is. Okay. So this is just a bit here. I had said earlier in the reading of the summary, just that they see Min, he sees her before he has the dream, and she's talking to Moraine, and Moraine is pointing down at him, and she nods. We don't know what that means, but here we are. So you are Rand, aren't you? She went on. My name is Min. I'm not in trouble, he said. He did not know what Moraine had told her, but he remembered Land's, that he should not attract any notice or draw any attention to himself. What makes you think I'm in trouble? The Two Rivers is a quiet place, and we're all quiet people. No place for trouble, unless it has to do with the crops or sheep. Quiet? Men with a faint smile. I've heard men talk about you two river folks. I've heard the jokes about wooden-headed sheep herders. And then there are men who have actually been down country. Wooden-headed, Rand said, frowning. What jokes? The ones, she went on, as if he had not spoken. Say you walk around all smiles and politeness, just as meek and soft as butter, on the surface anyway. Underneath, they say, you're all as tough as old oak roots. Prod too hard, they say, and you dig up stone. But the stone isn't buried very deep in you, or in your friends. It's as if a storm has scorched away almost all the coverings. Moraine didn't tell me anything, but I see what I see. And so she sees what she sees. And so we're going to get into men being a seer. And, you kind of saw here that, let's see how she puts it. Let's see. What makes you think Mistress Alice has another name? So first he's kind of shocked that she knows Moraine's name because Master Finch and others don't know it. And, Minda says, because she told me. Not that she had a choice, I suppose. I saw she was different right away when she stopped here before on her way down country. She knew about me. I've talked to others like her before. Saul, Rand said, well, I don't suppose you'll go running to the children, not considering who your traveling companions are. The White Cloaks wouldn't like what I do any more than they like what she does. And actually, so when you go back to like Master Finch kind of saying that they believed an Aes Sedai was in Baerlon, it makes me sometimes think they thought it was men. Like they didn't, maybe some people knew about men and there was some whispers and rumors and it got to the White Cloaks and they were looking for men because, Moraine had come through there though before. So there's that. Okay. And so let's see. Rand says, I don't understand. She says, I see pieces of the pattern. Min gave a little laugh and shook her head. Sounds too grand to me. I just see things when I look at people, and sometimes I know what they mean. I look at a man and a woman who have never even talked to one another, and I know they'll marry, and they do. That sort of thing. She wanted me to look at you, all of you together. Rand shivered. What did you see? When you're all in a group, sparks swirling around you, thousands of them, and a big shadow, darker than midnight, it's so strong, I almost wonder why everyone can't see it. The sparks are trying to fill the shadow, and the shadow is trying to swallow the sparks. She shrugged. You are all tied together in something dangerous, but I can't make any more of it. Think about that right there. Like, we've been there's something special, something's going on here. They're all tied together, and there's a darkness, and, sparks or light is trying to combat the darkness, right? Let me go on just a little bit more here.
Yeah, where they start talking about Egwene.
Yeah, so all of us, Rand muttered, Egwene too, but they weren't after. Men did not seem to notice his slip. The girl? She's a part of it, and the Gleeman, all of you. You're in love with her. He stared at her. I can tell that even without seeing any images, she loves you too, but she's not for you, or you for her. Not the way you both want. What's that supposed to mean? When I look at her, I see the same as when I look at Mistress Alice. Other things I don't understand too, but I know what that means. She won't refuse it. So she's talking about like her calling to be an Aes Sedai.
To be an Aes Sedai, yeah.
Yeah. Rand says this is all foolishness. So he's getting a little pissed, right? Because this is his girl. And he's just like, this is the life that he saw and everyone else saw for him. And it's just, disappearing right in front of his eyes. Let's see. He wanted to get away from this girl and the things she saw. And yet, what do you see when you look at the rest of us? All sorts of things, Min said with a grin, as if she knew what he really wanted to ask. The war, Master Andra has 7 ruined towers around his head, and a babe in a cradle holding a sword. And she shook her head. Men like him, you understand, always have so many images. They crowd one another. The strongest images around the Gleeman are a man, not him, juggling fire, and the White Tower, and that doesn't make any sense at all for a man. The strongest things I see about the big curly-haired fellow are a wolf and a broken crown and trees flowering all around him. And the other one, a red eagle, an eye on a balance scale, a dagger with a ruby, a horn, and a laughing face. There are other things, but you see what I mean. This time I can't make up or down what any of it means. She waited, then still grinning, until he finally cleared his throat and asked, "What about me?" Her grin stopped short of outright laughter. The same kind of things as the rest. A sword that isn't a sword, a golden crown of laurel leaves, a beggar's staff, you pouring water on sand, a bloody hand and a white-hot iron, 3 women standing over a funeral pyre with you on it, black rock wet with blood. Dude, I tell you what, right now, like
clearly we're gonna have to come back to a lot of this stuff as we progress throughout the series because
yes,
and see how much of it's true or whatever,
and what piece meant what
right.
later on in the stories, right? I mean, it's clear as day that she's prophesying about things to come, and the reason I wanted to point it out, and we'll talk more about it later as we have more time, but like the thing that's significant is that Robert Jordan knew. He had this thing mapped out, dude. It's just so fascinating to see that he's basically telling us, and as you go through the story, you learn about all those different things, and it's just like, wow, he knew this from the get-go. This man had this whole thing in his mind and gave us this
which
great
is good.
world and story. Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
that's good. That way you don't have to deal with books never, not coming out. Although it seems like somewhere along the line, his journey took him down a path that added about 5-6 books in the series.
Yeah. But I mean, it is a difference in style. I mean, he's someone who knew the end and really knew how everything was going to work up to that point, sort of. I mean, it does evolve a little bit on him, as you say, but still really cool. And so I think we'll leave that Min conversation right there and come back to what she is seeing, whether it's fragments of the pattern or what have you. But really, really cool stuff.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Now,
well,
I think, do you have the Fade stuff pulled up? That's the next big thing, I think, right?
Yeah, that is the next big thing. Let me just pull it up here. My notes are pretty extensive here. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, as you're pulling that up, I'll kind of talk a little bit about this. So, I mean, they're being pursued, and the crazy, some of the bits there with the white cloaks being in Baerlon, there's all sorts of stirrings, and they also, something that's important to note here, they equate like Aes Sedai to being dark friends. I mean, they hate Aes Sedai. They don't like them. So they're looking for one, and you can see how Min and her powers would have been similar if you didn't understand the workings, the sort of like details, I guess, or inner workings of the Aes Sedai. You might think someone with Min's ability or talent would be an Aes Sedai, and actually, I was wondering if that was something even you were going to ask, but like clearly, she's young and she is talking to Moraine, and she has talked to others like her, and no one has taken her, along to the White Tower. So it's a different type of thing. It's not necessarily channeling, and so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So chapter 17 is when he's attacked by the Murdral or the Fade. It's basically like he's just kind of walking along, and the next thing you know, it just like slams against him right up like kind of in a hallway. Rand's back struck wood, a wall, or a door. He could not make himself look around to see which. Now that his feet had stopped, he could not make them start again. He shivered, watching the Murdral slither nearer. His shaking grew harder with every slow stride. Speak, I say. Or from above came a quick clatter of boots from the stairs up the wall, and the Murdral cut off, whirling. The cloak hung still. For an instant, the Fade's head tilted, as if the eyeless gaze could pierce the wooden wall. A sword appeared in the dead white hand, blade as black as the cloak. The light in the hall seemed to grow dimmer in the presence of that blade. Trembling, Rand knew that he was going to die. You belong to the great Lord of the Dark. The breathy grating of the voice sounded like fingernails scratched across a slate. You are his. And then Lan shows up, leaps down from the last stairs, landing with a crashed sword in hand. Fade, he gasped. It was. Abruptly, he remembered his sword. With the Murdral facing him, he had never thought of it. He fumbled the heron-marked blade out now. It ran that way, and then Lan kind of chases it down. But I mean, man, it's just kind of like, we keep hearing about, there's a Fade chasing him, there's a Fade chasing him. And then the next thing you know, boom, there you just get hit by it.
Right, exactly, yeah. And it's sort of like, thank goodness, Lan is there, and it's like these when a Fade shows up, I mean, and he's making his way to you are just petrified. I mean, you're just sort of stuck there, and it
I mean,
takes willpower to really move.
It was,
and yeah.
Yeah, it's just I just thought it was cool that like, you know, we keep hearing about it, and then boom, it just like okay, there it is, like kind of out of nowhere, it just catches them like not really anticipating it at all.
Right. So it's like pay attention to the shadows where these things kind of linger and stuff, and look at how it, you know, slipped in here. Also, what's interesting, you have to remember, Fades do look a little bit. They're men. They're eyeless men. Like there's this membrane that kind of covers their eyes and stuff, and they're pale, whatever. But they are walking upright, and they have hoods, right. And so they could walk into, you know, a town and be hooded, you know, be cloaked. And you maybe wouldn't know unless it lifted its head and you could see into its eyes, and you'd be like, "Holy God!" You would feel there's definitely something too. Shadow Spawn, you had that presence. You kind of feel that there's an evil about, and so that's another indicator that a Fade is nearby. And that's also what. So we just talked about Lan's powers and the bond that he and Moraine have. One of the gifts that come with that bond is that he can sense Shadow Spawn when they are nearby. He can sense them. So he was cued into something. He knew something was up. And he doesn't maybe know where Rand is exactly, although Moraine does, because she had given him the coin, you know. So if he had a sense that something was going down, you know, he's on the lookout and was able to kind of help Rand out there. But yeah, that was wild. And it really, to end the whole thing, I mean, they now know at this point it's
time to go. Yeah, it's time to go. And that's essentially what happens is they leave. And so we thought that's why we thought it was a good place to stop for our segment.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like they've got to get out of there. I mean, there's a whole bit too, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but like Moraine's power, you know, and some of what she does as they're on their way out of Barillon, compensating, you know, there's some other cool stuff that we obviously, you know, missed and maybe need to come back to, but
And a Fade. Are we ever going to be safe again? Not until we get to Tar Valon.
Yeah, let me just read here. So yeah, we're never gonna be safe until we get to Tar Valon. That's true. So they had decided to go. Let me see, because Nynaeve shows up, and one thing that I think we need to talk about is that Nynaeve does show up. And so, you know, they have this big conversation about what to do and whether Nynaeve should go, and she's stubbornly trying to bring them back. So that needs to be mentioned as a plot point. And then I guess right here at the end, I'll just read some of this that, you know, when he walked towards the common room after Nynaeve had left, so Nynaeve then leaves, he wants to hear people laugh, and he wants to forget what the wisdom had said. You know, he enters this crowded room, and he sees Tom performing the Great Hunt of the Horn, and he makes his way and sits down next to Perrin and Mat. This is a good little moment where, you know, when we were coming up, even for the name of the podcast and stuff, and you know, we're thinking about the Great Hunt for the Horn of Valir, and it's referenced all the time, and the heroes of the Horn or something that Tom, you know, talks about and everything. So, but yeah, he's performing all these different things. Finally, he exchanges his harp with his flute, and two men join him, and there's some dancing that goes down. This is a great little scene because you see you see Moraine down there and Nynaeve, almost like they're competing with each other, getting involved in this dance, which is kind of cool. So yeah, they clear the room for dancing. When Rand dances, he finds himself staring at a man with a scar crossing his whole face. He quickly looks away and wonders if he was insulted, or if he has insulted the man. Rand then dances with Nynaeve, Moraine, Egwene before sitting down on the bench. Towards midnight, Moraine and Egwene leave, and after one dance, Nynaeve follows them. Lan, let's see. Yeah, let's move on down here. Let's see. The others then go to their rooms. Rand decides to get some milk. Let's see. This is when the Fade walks towards him. Now, after that, they ride down the streets of Barillon alone. They're reaching the Caemlyn Gate. So they're about to hit, the next chapter is the Caemlyn Road, right? Lan wakes the Watchman, pays him some money. They do their thing. They tell them that there's a Drakkar that's been seen flying over the town. This is where the White Cloaks sort of notice Rand, and I just wanted to point this out because he has Rand, Perrin, and Mat sort of have this these run-ins with the White Cloaks who are looking for dark friends, and anyone who seems interesting and not just going about their mundane, lives and stuff, and they're traveling with mysterious people. They look like country folk, but like Moraine and Lan don't. They look suspicious, and so they get recognized. And this is when Moraine sort of uses her powers and scares the freaking daylights out of people, and is able to get through. And she actually ends up then sending a bunch of gold back to Master Finch because his inn gets burnt down. The Stag and Lion gets burnt down, and she and Nynaeve get in a huge fight about trying to help everyone. Why don't we go back and heal those people and try to help them? And this is where Moraine sort of draws a line in the sand and says, it's bigger than that. What we're doing is bigger than this, and I will send aid and money and help and do what I can. But right now, the most important thing is to get as far away from here as we can and continue on with the quest. It is like we have been close to being caught several times. Like, keep up, Nynaeve, let's go. And really, Nynaeve just, from her scope, from her lens, she doesn't know all this stuff. She's just trying to protect these kids, and she feels that's her job as the wisdom, and she's come after them. And yeah, so that's really where we kind of leave this whole thing and head into this next batch of chapters. So
yeah. So next time we're doing chapters 18 through 26. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, okay. All right. Well, we have a message here. I still don't think we've, we still don't know. Communication. Yeah. It's,
right.
we looked, if somebody knows, right. Is it in hyperspace? We got transmissions, and Ben the Knee, we got ravens. I don't really know how it is that they send
communication.
Communication, yeah.
Yeah, someone let us know. Someone who's like an experienced listener or I'm sorry, reader or what have you. I was thinking Teleron Riyadh, just in sending messages and stuff. So who knows? But anyways, here we go. Yeah, this is from Kay Sedai of the Blue Aja. Okay,
perfect.
One of our patrons says, "Hello, sirs. I discovered BTK around the end of season 8 and have been following the A Song of Ice and Fire reread with you guys ever since. I love the respect you guys give to your community, and I enjoy listening to you guys talk about these amazing fandoms. The Wheel of Time is a series I've avoided for so long because I knew it was going to be a huge undertaking. With 2 young kids and a full-time job with crazy hours, I was afraid it would be too much. But as soon as I heard you guys were doing it, I knew it was time. I've just started The Great Hunt, and I'm loving this series so far. I love that this is going to be a relatively spoiler-free podcast, and that I get to listen and react to the books alongside Sir Matt. I think this will also be a great help to keep things straight for a first-time read-through. So since I'm supposed to pick an Aja, all right, so she's one of our Aes Sedai, she went with blue for now, although she would like to reserve the right to maybe change it later as we learn more. So, if you're getting into it and you decide, you know what, I'm going to switch it up, that's fine. We make the rules here, okay?
Right.
So, doesn't matter. You want to change it, you change it. Yeah. And really, I think a lot of people are attracted to the blues because out the gate, you meet Moraine. Right. And Moraine seems
That's what she
cool.
says here. Yeah, she's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you guys for keeping me company during my crazy drive around DFW on the way...
Dallas-Fort Worth
area. Gotcha.
Yeah.
On the way to work and dropping off / picking up my kids, it has also... it's also great. It's a great way to unwind after a crazy day in the pharmacy. With the hard work and love you guys put into your podcast, I'm happy to be supporting y'all on Patreon. Keep up the amazing work. Kay Sedai. All right.
Perfect.
Wow.
Did I do that right? I believe so, from what I can see.
Yes, you did. Yeah, so it's your name and then Sedai, right? So we have Moraine Sedai. Yes.
Perfect.
And then Kay Sedai here now. So that's cool. Really cool. And if you want to, any of our patrons who are on, who have signed up or whatever, send us a message. That we read those on the show.
Yes, we do.
Send us an email too, and we will kind of incorporate that. Like I said, the discussion threads and the polls are there for you guys to check out. A lot of fun, a lot of free stuff there for you to go, look into. So, all right, Sir Matt, here we go. So,
the gift of foretelling, man. Let me.
Do you
see.
have it?
Let me see here. I don't even remember what I said last time.
Well, I put it in here. Matt predicts that Rand and Egwene will hook up.
Well, I don't think that's. I think I was. I don't think I was wrong.
I think you're wrong.
That does not. That does not seem to be.
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, we don't know. All you know is that Min. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, Min, it seems pretty cool. So far, I'm really. She might be. It's I like Egwene too, and so. Man, it's just the cast of characters just continues to grow. So, I mean, next time, so we're about to leave. We're about to go on the Camelin Road as we continue our journey. So, if I have to pick something that's going to happen in the next handful of chapters, just where I think we're going, man, it seems to me like wherever it is we end up next is, I think we're going to learn a lot more about Matt, Perrin, and Rand. Okay. It certainly seems like there is something special about these three. Obviously, Egwene is part of that too, but I think we're gonna get in these next few as we've been attacked by some dark creatures and things like that. I think that we're gonna uncover some sort of significant piece of backstory or a backstory to them.
To those three characters, so we're gonna get some backstory on them. Okay. All right,
which I know is like, it's like, well, that's pretty obvious. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like we're heading into it's not like right now we're heading into a big battle or something where I can say like this character will die or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just kind of depends on where we stop.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question too. Any thoughts on Nynaeve going forward?
Yeah, I thought I did think it was cool earlier when she shows up and she's dancing and Rand and the boys are talking about like, well, she's not supposed to be dancing. She's not supposed to be dancing. Yeah, and so I did think that was cool. I could see her trying to take them back, right? Like she's like trying to take them back. But I don't know yet. She just showed up, so I don't know exactly. I certainly don't think her and Moraine are going to be philosophically agreeing on things. So I do think she and Moraine will get into a little bit, especially with Moraine already starting to train Egwene, right? So we got Nynaeve, Moraine, and Egwene. And so I think there's going to definitely be kind of a power struggle there.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like that. I'm gonna write that down. All right.
Hey, hold me to it. I think Rand and Egwene could still hook up, but I don't know, man. Now it seems certainly a little less likely. So.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. I am keeping track of the predictions here on the doc. I'm gonna save these because I think this is fun, and I want to kind of see, yeah, just kind of cool. It's cool to think about this because, dude, I'll tell you what, we're going to have to keep track of it because I am telling you, stuff gets out of control when characters start to kind of, we form a big band here in the beginning, a big, group of people, but then, how
as it goes, everyone's going to be split up and all over the place. And
Yep.
So.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that is cool. So, yeah, there's our gift of foretelling. We'll kind of keep checking in on Sir Matt there. But time to answer the call real quick before we say farewell. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Horn of Valir. I do try to post some pictures and some updates there. I think a lot of my just engagement, because we do different projects and stuff, for this podcast will be just on Patreon. I'm trying to streamline sort of like where I go to communicate with people, and I've been posting discussion threads and stuff there. But also, if you're interested in a Facebook group, please let me know. We have not started one yet. Kind of just waiting to see how people feel about it, and we may start one. Now, Sir Matt is not allowed in it.
I'm not,
because I am.
There'll be too many. There'll be too many spoilers.
People will. And I want it to be. I kind of want it to be. I don't really know yet. I mean, I'm trying to gauge like how many people do we have it's their first read, how many people is it their this is their 10th read. That's this sort of the thing, because I want there to be a little something for everybody. So
exactly,
yeah.
and we certainly want people, and this is kind of where Ez is doing some of this stuff on Patreon, where he can people have theories. What do you think about this that happens in book 10, and does it relate to something in book 4? I don't know, but Ez does.
Yeah. And so we can talk like we can do spoiler threads. There's a community tab we can get on there. You can DM me on Twitter. If you've got questions or thoughts, you want to go back and forth on something, I mean, definitely hit us up, because I would love to engage and talk more with people. And I've even been working on a couple of different possible collaborations with people who have read the series and who are other content creators out there. So I'm looking forward to some of those conversations that will be airing as well. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, just a lot of fun stuff. And also too, I mean, the rewards and stuff we have on Patreon are pretty solid. I hope you guys enjoy those, and we're going to be, getting that stuff out to you, because we're about to flip off here and just, record our extended edition and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. So, all right, guys. Well, we want to thank you for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing The Eye of the World, chapters 18 through 26. In our extended edition on Patreon, we will be covering Shadar Logoth.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you February 1st, and remember that the grave is no bar to our call.